Welcome to Conversation with Chris. I'm Chris Gaddy. In this episode, I sit down with Dr. Caroline Silby, Team Psychologist for the U.S. Olympic Figure Skating Team. Dr. Silby and Team USA recently returned from the Beijing Olympics. So far in her career, she has served as a mental health coach for over 2 Olympic gold medalists, 10 Olympians, 3 world champions, 11 national champions, and over 50 national competitors. Author of the critically acclaimed book Games Girls Play, Understanding and Guiding Young Female Athletes, she has also been an expert on numerous media outlets, including the New York Times, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and CNN. Dr. Silby is also a former athlete herself, a nationally ranked figure skater.
Dr. Silby is the sports psychologist for the Olympic U.S. Figure skating team. So she definitely has the credentials to back up anything she says. So I definitely take everything she says to heart, and get out pen and paper right now because everything she says, you just definitely want to cherish that information. So first question, first of all, thank you for joining us. And
Thanks
so
for having me.
so first of all, the Beijing Olympics, they were obviously not too long ago, and there was a lot going on. The Beijing Olympics were in the headlines a whole bunch, and there was a lot of unusual headlines that we don't typically see with the Beijing Olympics, especially around athletes and mental health. And that a lot of that was stemming from Simone Biles coming out with her mental health struggles and being more candid than you see a lot of athletes be. So how do you think it feels, especially for athletes, to have that kind of burden lifted where they feel like they can be more open about their mental health to the public?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge game changer for athletes that the whole field around, not field, but the whole idea of athletes being able to discuss their mental health and that becoming destigmatized has really been an important forward movement for athletes. And I think what we're starting to see is that whereas we've always done a lot in terms of, at least in my role, a lot of awareness and prevention of mental health issues and concerns. Now we're starting to see national governing bodies and sports organizations really start to operationalize kind of that ability to address people's mental health concerns, not only their performance concerns. So that's going to be continually evolving. But the idea that colleges, youth sport organizations, national governing bodies of sports are all kind of on the same page or starting to get on the same page about operationalizing procedures to deal with people's mental health, especially people's mental health crises, is incredibly impactful. And we've got a way to go, but we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's great to see that we're moving in the right direction with that, especially, and we've seen it with a couple other pro athletes, not just within the Olympics. You see like NBA players like Kevin Love coming out talking about his mental health struggles. NFL players, it's starting to become a more generalized conversation, and that's definitely something that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And so helpful to athletes of all levels, of all ages, and different stages of their development to see really high level athletes be able to openly discuss kind of their own mental health journey and kind of their own emotional development, not just talking about the physical and performance piece of their development.
How is it to have mental health being a central part of the sports conversation, not just the Olympics, but as people are talking about sports and just having a casual conversation about, what happened in the game last night? Sometimes mental health can slip into that conversation and just become, like we said, more generalized. So how is that to you? How do you view that, and how do you think that can help us going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a really great and interesting question. So in my role, I've always kind of viewed my work as kind of having two objectives. So first and foremost, we want young people's sport experiences to help them develop and grow into empowered, healthy, happy, fulfilled people. We also want athletes' outcomes to match capability. So it's kind of like this dual objective, right? That you're trying to really make sure that people grow emotionally through the sport experience while also learning kind of all the necessary mental training skills that are going to help them align performance with their capabilities. So I think the whole idea of performance also goes hand in hand with personal development, I guess. And they're both unbelievably, when you can have, well, for instance, if you look at an athlete who's had a lot of success, but they've been miserable in their experience, right, then their success is really nothing more than kind of a relief. It feels like almost to them a relief from their suffering. We don't want sport experiences, no matter how much success you have. You don't want it to be, look back on it and say, well, that was just one big relief, right? You want it to know what that experience did and how it helped you become whoever you want to ultimately become emotionally, even what you want to do objective wise, career, and so forth. So I think it all really goes hand in hand in terms of how you might define a successful sport experience. It can't just be about an outcome. It also has to be about your personal process of getting there.
Yeah, definitely about that personal process of getting there. And I know as an athlete myself, I know it can be difficult to admit to mental health challenges, especially especially when I'm so passionate about a sport and I really want everything in that sport to go well, but sometimes things just aren't clicking, and that can really get you down. I mean, I know that from personal experience. So I would like to know, as an athlete, it being so difficult to open up about these mental health challenges, particularly when it comes to like confidence and nerves and stuff like that. And we don't always get the support that we need from like our coaches. A lot, and that's an issue in itself, where they're more focused on the game outcome rather than the individual player's mental well-being. But what would you say to especially a student athlete when it comes to making peace with mental and emotional challenges?
Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces, I think, to that question, and there's so many strategies that we use, right, to help athletes navigate the many challenges that that sport can bring, especially sport at a high level. And so one of the first things that I'd say is that athletes can sometimes, when things are not going well, and this is true for just high achieving people in general, which a lot of athletes are high achievers in many areas of their life. It can be really hard when you don't meet an expectation, whether that's your own expectation or the expectation of the coach or the expectation of teammates. When you don't meet an expectation, it can become really easy for high achieving people to turn on themselves. And so if you think about that, it's kind of like this process of when if you don't meet the expectation, it's almost like you're not, and you attack yourself. You're not just the attacker, you're also the attacked. You're both people, right? So you don't meet the expectation. Let's say you just played a disastrous game, you threw some air balls, whatever it may be, right? And it's like, and when you turn on yourself like that, cortisol soars, which is the stress hormone, right? And so now you've just kind of escalated the situation exponentially. And what really needs to happen in those moments is athletes really have to come to an understanding of acceptance. And that can be a really, really hard concept. So, because the word acceptance, even when I say it, the athletes listening may be like, huh? What do you mean accept that I didn't play well, or accept that, I missed the shot or threw an air ball, which, Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest of all times, right? Threw air balls when he first stepped into the NBA, right? Yep. So, the idea of acceptance can very often to athletes kind of feel like, well, that's just giving up or giving in. But actually, acceptance is not that. It's very much the the precondition to growth and change. And when we accept something, all we're doing is looking at what is in front of us with clarity. And we're saying, okay, that's what it is. I didn't play well in that game. That's what it is. I'm disappointed. And from there, when you take that acceptance and you pair it with your hunger for more, that's when all the magic in sport happens. So it's that overlap between I accept what is and I'm hungry for more that really propels people forward. Where people sometimes start to go down a path that starts to create a lot of stress is when they turn on themselves and they're very conditional with themselves, which means or can look like, in some ways, it'll look like, well, I'll accept myself and I'll believe in myself, I'll respect myself, and I'll challenge myself if and when I meet the expectation.
Okay, wow. So
But
that's
yeah, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say that whole acceptance thing, that's really touching. Because I mean, I've had bad games. Believe me, I've had my fair share of bad games, and there's always a lot of pressure. But that sometimes when I have a bad game, and I know this isn't just the case for me, it's the case for a whole bunch of other people that just get down on ourselves. I have, when I had a bad game, just don't forget about it for a couple of days, and it sticks with me. But that accept thing is really something that I feel like if I can master it, anyone else can master it. It could really be like career altering, honestly, like when it comes to your sport.
Especially on just how you feel about the quality of your experience, right? And again, it's empowering, and it also helps align performance with capability. So it's this idea that, I should be able to accept, believe in, and respect myself no matter what. Not just when I meet the expectation, no matter what, right? And that's a hard concept to master. So I agree with you. Acceptance is key. Not easy to do, but when you understand that it's not giving up or giving in, it's merely the ability to see what's in front of you with clarity so you can make good choices about tapping into your competitiveness and hunger for more. Lots of good stuff can happen from there.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to take that into my game.
Good. Oh, I'm glad.
I've got a couple games this weekend. I'm going into that. Wow, that was powerful, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad.